Okay, MrMostDaysOff, now we're ready for the TeePublic ad.
Head over to tpublic.com/bestdarndiddly right now to support our show. Get yourself some Best Darn Diddly merchandise and help grow our podcast. I messed up there. Can I get another take?
Okay, just a second.
Out of the way, amateur. Hey, it's Krusty. Go to tpublic.com/bestdarndiddly. Hey, it's Krusty. Go to patreon.com/bestdarndiddly. Go to popthreads.com and save 15% with the discount code Simpsons. Hey, it's Krusty. Go to bestdarndiddly.com to get all your podcast needs from the greatest show on earth. Learn from a professional, kid.
All right, Krusty, we're ready for your take. Krusty?
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons, or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as MrMostDaysOff, and today we are going up and at them with our review of Radioactive Man, and we have a spectacular guest joining us today to discuss this great episode and the third season of his hit show on Netflix, F is for Family. But before we get to him, joining me as always, your co-host with the most, Richie theWizKid. How you doing today, Rich?
I'm doing fantastic today, Miles. I know we're both excited to talk about this episode that I'm sure you love just as much as I did since we were children, so I won't waste any time. I'll throw it back to you, the man, the myth, the Fallout Boy, to my Radioactive Man, but it is Miles.
Well, today it's not just about Radioactive Man and Fallout Boy. We've got a third voice joining us and a great guest that we've had twice before, coming back for the third time to talk about the third season of F is for Family. It's Mike Price. How are you today, Mike?
Hey, I'm great, guys. How are you?
Oh, we're doing wonderful. We're so happy to have you back for the third time to talk about a great episode of The Simpsons and Radioactive Man. And of course, the third season of F is for Family, which is coming up very shortly. Actually, as we air, it's about a month away. And as as we record, it's about a month away. And as we air, it just released 2 days ago.
Really? All right. Well, I hope everybody liked it so far. November 30th was the day that season 3 of F is for Family came out. So, yeah.
And it looks like we talked to you, and I remember as I was preparing for this discussion with you today, I was laughing about how, like, oh man, season 1 left us with so many questions, and then rewatching season 2, and especially that last episode where just shit completely hits the fan in every direction. Man, what can you tell us that we have to look forward to coming into season 3?
Well, I mean, a lot of the questions that were posed at the end of season 2 will be answered. I can't say exactly, I don't want to spoil too much, but the Murphy family faces new challenges and some new things on the horizon. It takes place, we skip ahead about 2.5 months. So season 3 begins around Memorial Day of 1974 and runs.
They've had time to scrape the guts off of the runway at this point?
Mostly. You'll see there's a very quick shot of where the incident happened, and you'll see that it's not quite, it hasn't been 100% cleaned up. But wow. Yeah, so there's some fallout from that at the airport. Frank, I can say this, that Frank gets his job back, so he's back working at Mohican Airways, but that comes with new challenges and a new structure of the way things is working there. And but the third season focuses mostly on the family, but also really in a different way than other seasons on the neighborhood, on the cul-de-sac where the Murphys live, and we fill out a little bit of it, and we've come up with some new characters that were only glimpsed or mentioned in previous episodes. Previous seasons that we kind of fill out. So we meet Phillips, the rest of Phillips' family. You know, Babe is Phillips' father, but we meet Phillips' mother. Her name is Marie. And we saw her for like 1 second at the end of the Christmas episode in season 1, but now we get to see who she really is. She's voiced by a really, really funny actress named Jamie Denbo. We meet Philip's little brother, Anthony, who was briefly mentioned in season 1. He's voiced by a hilarious comedian named Al Ducharme. And you may have already seen him in the little trailer we sent out announcing our November 30th date. He's the little annoying little kid. Really funny, Anthony. He's just, we love him. And then we also meet Goomer's wife, Evelyn, who is very long-suffering and very understanding wife of a very strange man. She's voiced by a great actress named Eileen Fogarty. And as our other trailer revealed, our big guest star this year is none other than our executive producer, Vince Vaughn, who plays a Top Gun fighter pilot, macho dude who moves up the street from the Murphys. So he's their new neighbor in the neighborhood.
I love the teaser trailer you guys put out where he's giving Frank a ride in a fighter jet. And just it turns out to be a prank or whatever. But my God, Vince Vaughn, what another just big name to add to your already really, really great cast. I know that we've had some really nice stars joining in the past, like TJ Miller and Sam Rockwell, and of course Justin Long, who Richie and I both absolutely love as what a dick.
He says that a few times this year too. We love Kevin. Kevin is our favorite character aside from Frank, I think. I mean, we love all our characters, but he's so much fun to write for, and Justin does such a great job. And in the Justin, the Kevin sphere of things, we have new characters that he gets involved with this year, played by a couple of great actors. The main one, I guess you'd say, is Matt Jones, who was Badger on Breaking Bad. Cool. He's so funny, has such a unique, distinctive voice. He's really great. He's joined by a great actor named H. Michael Kroner and Bill Burr's wife, Nia Hill. It's a great cast this year. A lot of great new people and whole new characters and new places to go. And but also we see what happens to our old familiar characters and how they grow a little bit, change a little bit, and what they're dealing with. So it's fun.
I'm excited now. I didn't know about Nia Hill joining the show. I listen to Bill Burr's podcast quite a bit, and she is a frequent voice on that show. And I bet she's going to bring some fire to the cast as well. It sounds really
She was already on the show once.
Was she?
She had one line as Rosie's wife, Georgia. So you met her in season 2 when she goes, "Hello, Chauncey." So we find out that Rosie's name is Chauncey. So she comes back as that character, as Rosie's wife, but also as a new character named Nikki, who is a couple among this group of new kids that Kevin meets. So
I hope you found some way to get it in where Nia gets to bust Bill's balls as much as she does on the podcast.
You'll have to see. But,
very cool. Very cool.
Excited.
Yeah.
We're very, very excited about the season, and we're really excited for everybody to see it.
Yeah, and like I said, if you're listening to this right now, then F is for Family Season 3 just became available in its entirety on Netflix as the Netflix treatment, both a blessing and a curse, where we get to binge watch the entire thing and then just annoyingly send tweets about why isn't there a season 4?
I'm getting that already, so comes with the territory.
Well, do we have to wait to see how if we are going to get a season 4, or we already have word that there will be a season 4?
We're very hopeful we'll get one. We haven't officially been picked up for a season 4 yet, but Netflix has been very supportive of the show, and they tell us that they like the episodes. So
excellent.
We have a pretty good feeling about it. So
it's been a really, really great ride, and if season 3 does what season 2 did, where it really carries the plot forward with not just Frank, but getting to see all of the characters develop is a lot of fun. And I know a lot of our listeners who we tweet with about F is for Family as well as The Simpsons, they say the same thing. We really love Frank. He's a wonderful character, and Bill Burr does such a great job of giving him a believable voice. I love telling people I'm going to put them through that fucking wall if they, don't stop mouthing off. But it's the other characters
I was trying to describe that to my mother the other day, and she goes, "I don't remember saying that. with my parents when I was that age, and I was like, no, just watch it. You'll get it.
Well, what's so great about the show, and it wasn't around for the early years of The Simpsons, of course, but it feels like a feeling that they must have had where it started out with just the core group of the family, and then as you write it and as you create it, like you just sort of expand more and you create these characters that then come back, and because F is for Family is serialized, it's a little bit different from The Simpsons, but we're able to sort of harken back to something that was mentioned 12 episodes ago, and take a character that was just mentioned, like for instance Philip's brother. He just mentioned him in a line that we wrote for the show that was said on Halloween. Actually, we're recording it today on Halloween, but when he said, he thought he was going to be killed by Jimmy Fitzsimmons, and he goes, "If I die, tell my mother I touched the soft spot on my baby brother's head one time." That's why I'm afraid he can't read. So as we were writing the third season, we were like, "Oh, we never saw that baby brother, so let's bring him in." So that's who Anthony is. He's Philip's baby brother. And
the touching of a soft spot might actually explain quite a bit.
Yeah, you'll see. He's a great kid, and then Philip mentions that at one point when he's angry at him. He's just like, "I wish I'd pushed the soft spot of your head harder." Oh. Philip gets to grow a little bit this year too, and get a little stranger. As we discovered last year, he has that book of he calls it his kill book of everyone that he wants.
Yeah.
So we see a little bit more about what he's up to this year, and his strangeness grows, and we have other new characters that are just hinted at. Like, for instance, last year we hinted at the very end of the season that Jimmy Fitzsimmons has a little sister named Bridget, so we'll see a lot more of her this year, and she's great. Debbie Derryberry voices her, as well as Maureen, as well as Kenny, the kid with the diaper, and like a dozen other characters. And Debbie's just amazing. She does an amazing job with this new character, Bridget, which I think people will really, really like her. She's super fun. So it's fun. It's fun just to see everybody change a little bit. Rosie, the character of Rosie, has a big arc that starts this year. And, we see more about his life and his family life and who he is and what he really wants to do with his life. And, we have a lot of fun with Bob Pogo, voiced by the amazing Dave Koechner. And, even though a lot of most of the action of the season is really focused around the family and specifically the neighborhood. But we stop back in at the airport quite a bit, and we have a whole story going on there as well. So it's fun.
And then I'm back to the core family. I'm also really excited to see where Sue's storyline is going to progress with Laura Dern behind that character. That was so much fun with the salad tosser being stolen just right out from under her at the very end of the season.
Stolen by the evil Henrietta Van Finn.
Yes, and then of course the big cliffhanger, I think, would be the at least 1 in 3 chance that it seems that there might be a new addition to the household.
I can't say.
One, two, baby. 1, 2, baby.
Yeah.
Baby, 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 baby.
That character, Smokey, we love that character, and Michael Kenneth Williams, he's Omar on The Wire, did that voice. He is so great and such a wonderful guy. And so funny, and he's back this year. Not as much.
Oh, great!
He's not as big as he was in season 2 because Frank isn't working at the vending machine company anymore. But
sure.
But we'll see him a couple of times, and
it's good to know that he'll still be around.
He's still out there looking for his albino son that he abandoned to the circus. He's out there, and we meet. It's fun. It's so fun because I can tell you a little bit about our very first episode is set at a Memorial Day parade. So it's a chance to sort of check in with so many different characters. So Smokey's in that, there, and the other character that Justin Long does, which is our other favorite, like 9th level character. He's called the Circus Roustabout, or Phineas. He's the guy that was at the union meeting talking about how parade day should be working day. Great character. So he shows up for a little bit in that episode, and we check in with all the main characters, all the small characters. We see Father Pat, we see everybody, Vic, we see everybody at this parade. So it's a big party for all the characters that first episode.
Be interesting to see how well Vic's doing off the nose candy there.
Mm-hmm.
Or if he's still off the nose candy.
You'll have to see. But Sam Rockwell, of course, is now Academy Award winner, Sam Rockwell.
Woo! Oh yeah, that's cool that you have that to add to the box art.
Or to the opening credits.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we also have an Allison Janney Academy.
Yeah.
Allison Janney. She's only in
Oh, wow.
a little bit of the only a little bit, only a tiny little bit this year, but she's great.
Still counts.
Still counts. And actually, Sam came to record one of his shows, like I think the day after the Oscars, or the day, like 2 days after the Oscars. He was in our little studio recording our show. So
was he carrying the statue?
No, he was not. He was not. But he was very just humble and like just get to work and do the stuff. And
oh, that's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have liked to hear either story where like it was like, I'm sorry, the use of my left hand will no longer be available as it's now dedicated to this little man. But also love to hear that he's just, good dude and back to work and providing a great part of this cartoon.
Yeah. No, he's got a lot of great moments this year. A lot of really, really funny moments.
Completely off topic, but I just happened to watch that 3 billboards out of I'm gonna
Ebbing, Missouri.
Ebbing, Missouri.
There it is. Oh my God, what a powerful film and what a powerful performance he provides.
Oh, so good. He's so good, and he's in this movie coming out soon this year. That's with Christian Bale as Dick Cheney, and Sam.
Oh, wow.
Sam played President Bush in it. George Bush.
Oh my gosh!
So,
wow.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be tremendous.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. So again, one more time, all of this and more available in the 3rd season of F is for Family, which is available right now in its entirety on Netflix. Just got to click, use your cousin's subscription, get on there, check out the whole thing. It's a great show. How many episodes is season 3 going to bring us?
10.
Are we getting another 10?
10, another 10. 10 is the thing. So you could literally watch it all in an afternoon and then spend the next 2 years waiting for the next season. Or you can drag it out. But it's very bingeable, very, very bingeable, because you can watch the whole thing in a day. And each episode is around 28 minutes long. So you just pop through them all. Yeah.
Well, and you can always go on the wonderful .nerd message board to find out what's going to happen in season 4 before you even complete it. Just like Comic Book is able to find out all the juicy details about Radioactive Man in the episode we'll be reviewing today.
Exactly.
Which let's go ahead and dive into.
Sure.
We are talking about, again, Radioactive Man, which debuted on September 24th, all the way back in 1995 in the early ages of those AOL discs that were on everybody's coffee tables. The chalkboard gag on this one is Bewitched does not promote Satanism, which just real fun coincidence. The day they recorded the DVD commentary for this episode, which included Susie Dieter, David Silverman, David Merkin, and Matt Groening, it happened to be the day that the Bewitched movie starring Will Ferrell was releasing. So it was just a real fun, giggle for those guys.
Wow.
And I'm sure that movie was just as successful as the television show was. The couch gag on this one had the Simpsons family being printed out. I believe it said as if it were a fax machine, because there was like fax noises.
Yeah, sort of looked like that. But there was never a fax machine as nice as that one.
Yeah.
Well, I like how it neatly tucks itself away under the couch after it prints out.
Yeah,
too.
that was good. This is around the time, too, 95 was when the movie The Usual Suspects came out. And I remember seeing that. And that if you remember that, that movie would be difficult to make now, because if you recall, the big climax of that is when this fax is coming in to the police department. It's because they're finding out who Kaiser Soze is, and you keep cutting back and forth to the fax machine, and it's like slowly printing line by line. That turns out to be the face of Kevin Spacey, as verbal Kent. But the machine prints at the rate of fax machines printed in those days. It takes about 15 minutes for this fax to come out.
I guess the modern day equivalent would be if you're in a dead zone trying to download a text message and the text is starting to come through, and for some weird reason you're getting it word by word instead of as just the spinning circle. But yeah, no. That is a great movie, and you're right, that is a fairly outdated or maybe just dated ending at this point.
I keep picturing the alternate version where it's just you go the comedy route where he's doing this big spiel, but the text message picture's already come through, and the cop's just holding the picture in front of him so he sees it, but he's still talking.
Just
I'm in trouble, aren't I?
further and further in his mouth. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this episode officially opens with some nerd fans' favorite character, which is Comic Book Guy. And he is a great character, let's be real. The boys, Bart and Milhouse, are actually scanning for new comic books, but they are just tired of pretty much everything because nothing holds a candle to their favorite, which is, of course, Radioactive Man. There's a great visual gag here. As you're going along some of the comic books, you see things that you might expect, like Batboy and Catgirl. I really enjoyed Mr. Smarty Pants, but hiding in the stack of comics, there is a magazine that seems just a little bit out of place called Man Boy, featuring a shirtless man wearing a hard hat.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the only decent one was Radiation, dude. Let's be honest.
Right. That might be the magazine that the Scoutmaster villain would have read.
Oh, that's true. Yes, we'll talk about Scoutmaster here momentarily, which was based on Paul Lynde, who, we'll see some association between those jokes for certain. I just mentioned a moment ago that Comic Book Guy actually uses a very primitive version of the internet. It's I don't remember exactly. It was like nerd.chat. Something alt.nerd.obsessive. There it is.
Yeah.
And he's basically trying to get information about who is going to be playing Radioactive Man in the new movie. And we see a montage or a sequence where we're following this internet chat. We see Homer's old college roommates from Homer Goes to College. We see the now late artist formerly known as Prince, who is apparently way into the internet in the 90s. And we see someone that looks very similar to Curtis Armstrong, who was known for playing Booger in the Revenge of the Nerds movies.
Exactly.
Perfect cast of characters.
Perfect cast. And I remember that phase of the internet was basically just like message boards, and that's sort of how you talk. How you dealt with people like that. It was very, it seems ridiculous now, but that's pretty inaccurate. It's a fairly accurate representation of what the internet was like back in those days.
I remember I was a 10-year-old at that point, but I just remember the AOL thing. It was always keywords was the big thing. Like instead of typing out the web address, you just had to do the keyword. So like it'd be like keyword Fox to go to like look at the Fox lineup or whatever to find out when the Simpsons aired, for instance, or keywords Nickelodeon. I just remember that was such a funny thing. And I guess in a weird way that somewhat evolved into Google because nobody actually types out the website they want to go to. They just Google the word and it does it for them. The magic of the internet.
Right. Well, before then it was called Netscape Navigator and
yeah, I had that too.
The little ship's wheel.
Yeah.
yeah. Icons.
Ask Jeeves.
Oh, wow. That poor guy. I did a school project using Ask Jeeves once, I remember, and it was a grueling experience.
No, what better way to say that you're, 21st century technology than to reference, an English butler from the 1920s.
Great mascot choice.
Yeah.
Then again, what's a Google?
Well, it's just one little thing. I remember when Google was new, I was working on a show and we did a reference to Google on the show. This has to be like 15 years ago or so, 2002, 2003. And Google was so happy that we mentioned them that they sent us a box of all this stuff like beach towels that said Google on them and like Google hats because they were just so happy that anybody knew who they were. And now they own the world.
I was about to say, I have a feeling we're not going to get that treatment for mentioning them on this show, but, fingers crossed. The end search result of trying to find out who is going to be playing Radioactive Man actually ends up at a board meeting where we see a group of executives discussing that very thing. There's actually an older gentleman at the table who is saying that they want to keep it just like the original and get the man who used to play Radioactive Man on for the movie. And they cut to a parody that is very... Thank you, Dirk Richter. They cut to a parody that is very similar to the 1960s Batman, which is very cheesy and campy and amazing if you haven't seen it. It's A lot of fun, and it's a show that I actually still watch with my nephews to this day, and they're like 4 and 5, and they absolutely love it. So it works for whatever reason. It's a great show.
I was a kid. I was a little kid when it came on, and I can't tell you how earth-shattering that show was for little kids. We just loved it so much to the point where, when it was originally on, it was on 2 nights in a row. It was on, I think, like Tuesday night and then Wednesday night. So like part 1 would be on Tuesday night. And then at the end of that first part 1, Batman and Robin would be trapped in,
tune in tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel.
Right, they'd be stuck in like a giant ice cream cone or something by Mr. Freeze. And then the next day at school, like all the first graders were like, "Oh my God, what are they going to do? How they going to get out of it?" Like we really took it seriously. We thought it was fun.
Sure.
We meant it for real. So yeah, I love that show. And, and there's been there's a lot of great Simpsons references to it over the years, but I think this was probably the first.
This one was great. It does feature the villain, the Scoutmaster, which is a perfect parody of one of the villains that you would find on that Batman show. Again, this character was in reference to the comedian Paul Lynde, who was at the time known for a comedy style based on playing a barely in the closet homosexual type of character, or maybe that's just who he was as a person. He passed away in 1983, so if you're worried about his unwokeness, like, let it go, dude. It's fine.
Oh, he was so funny too. He was so funny. And then he was famous for being, he was a character actor who was in tons of shows in the 60s, like guest starring on Bewitched and things like that. I know we mentioned Bewitched earlier. But then he be super famous for being on the Hollywood Squares game show. But he was so funny. So funny.
I also like there's a couple of kind of self-references right here as they're doing the classic Batman 60s style fight scene where anytime there's a punch or a kick or a fight move of any sort, instead of seeing the violence, you just see a comic book style word pop up on screen, something like a pow or slam. But in this case, we get things like Suff, Pan, Snuh, which is a reference to the group that Marge started when she was protesting the Itchy and Scratchy show back in season 1.
For niceness, understanding, and helping.
There you go. And also Bort, which is, of course, the most popular of names at Itchy and Scratchy Land.
We need more Bort license plates. Repeat, we need more Bort license plates.
Shout out to Bob from the Nerd or Not podcast who lives in Florida and was actually nice enough to send me a Bort keychain from Springfield there at Universal. So thank you, Bob. Super nice dude.
Yeah.
So moving on, we see that they have decided on Rainier Wolfcastle to be their Radioactive Man, but now where to shoot? And they go to a phone book, actually, or an advertisement that has all of these places. It's in Hollywood. They're trying to decide where to go to a filming location. You see all of these beautiful ads that have picturesque mountainside views or beach views or just countryside views or whatever they're advertising. And then in the corner, you see a little ad in black and white that says Flim Springfield.
Wow, look at that ad.
A place that big must be hot. They don't even have to use correct spelling.
I agree with that logic.
I love immediately when they arrive in Springfield, you can just see the greed in the Springfieldians going on. I mean, Mayor Quimby has just literally got money signs in his eyeballs every time these Hollywood types come around.
But they say they only have $30 million to spend on a superhero flick. And I know this is $1995, but that still doesn't seem like it's going to be enough money for a superhero movie.
Well, and you're going to find out that that's exactly true. I mean, they're down to their last cent when there's the leaving town and packing up tax or whatever it is at the end.
There's a $1,000 leaving town tax.
I love, though, how just like ready to completely sell out Quimby is. We'll blow up our dams, destroy forests, anything. If there's a species of animal that's causing problems nosing around your camera, we'll have it wiped out.
We don't want to kill things. Right.
So the big news that comes to town out of all of this, though, is that while Rainier Wolfcastle will be Radioactive Man, they're actually going to audition the local Springfield residents to try to find their new Fallout Boy, Radioactive Man's trusty sidekick.
Which Skinner completely botches when he's saying it over the morning announcements on the intercom.
Radio Man.
Radioactive Man, stupid.
And then that moment there where Skinner was like, I don't know why I should have been able to hear that. That's funny. Well, let me just say, this script, I mean, watching this show again, I hadn't seen it in many years, but it was such a delight because it was written by the amazing John Swartzwelder. His fingerprint is across every moment of the show. It's so funny, so bizarre, so looked at from such a weird, hilarious point of view. That's just such a treat. He's such a great writer, and such a treat to watch the show again.
I'm glad you pointed that out. And a gag that we just completely forgot to mention that has happened twice at this point actually was pointed out in the commentary as a very traditional Swartzwelder joke by Matt Groening. And that's where at the very beginning, when the boys find out that there's going to be a Radioactive Man movie, their hats actually fly off because they're so surprised, but it turns out it's just the air conditioning ducts. And then a second time in the school, whenever Skinner makes that announcement, the exact same thing happens. And Matt Groening said that this was just a perfect example of the type of thing that John Swartzwelder would provide for a script that nobody else would have ever come up with. And he just comes up with these sitting in the corner of his room, though there's still that fan base out there that doesn't believe John Swartzwelder exists. So where are these ideas coming from?
He exists. I've seen him. Not too much.
Yeah. That's what all you Simpsons writers say.
We have photo evidence in Mike Reese's new book, though, from many, many years ago. He is in one of those photos.
That's true. It's the first time we've seen him. Yeah, no, but that's a great gag.
A very, very nice man. So just a great writer.
I also really appreciate I guess it's a visual gag more than anything. I don't know. It's the next sequence we see where they're actually announcing the fact that there's going to be a contest or auditions to be Fallout Boy. And Homer's flipping through the channels in a very quick succession, but he's actually getting the news delivered one word at a time in perfect sync on every single channel. We actually get a really quick cameo from Birch Barlow, which was featured pretty heavily in the sideshow Bob Roberts, yeah.
Yep.
The very political episode from season 6. But yeah, just this great sequence where as he flips, we get the news delivered that there will in fact be auditions for Fallout Boy.
That sounds exciting for one particular Simpsons family member.
Yeah, Bart's instantly just in character constantly. He's already basically assumed the role of Fallout Boy. I mean, everywhere he goes, he's delivering lines. And to his credit, every time he delivers a line, he seems to kind of steal the moment. So things are looking up for Bart. Meanwhile, though, Homer's actually taking a load off at Moe's and getting a fun story of fleshing out some of Moe's very mysterious past that we always love to hear more and more about, because Moe was one of the original Little Rascals.
Which one were you, the ugly one?
He was a tough, smelly kid, and his shtick was looking into an exhaust pipe and getting a face full of soot, which nobody could do better than Moe.
I forgot the bit where he kills the first alfalfa for stealing his bit.
Alfalfa, of course, decides to take the bit by looking in the tailpipe for a lost marble, and when he gets the soot to the face, Moe just loses it.
Just the fact that it's all on camera too, and there's no video of it out in the world for everyone to see.
I mean, apparently, it was released. It was a short, just put it out there. But,
well, I mean, Alfalfa was an orphan owned by the studio, so.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
It's almost as sad as what happened to the real Alfalfa.
Oh yeah, that's actually a dark story of Hollywood. Yeah,
he was murdered, and apparently some kind of drug deal gone wrong or something.
Yeah, they did a True Hollywood story on that a decade plus ago, but a dark but very interesting story.
Yeah.
Especially
a real
now,
life Merkin moment.
and now in the day and age where true crime is so popular, it's making well, it's always been somewhat popular, but I don't think it's ever been as popular as it is right now, and that would be a interesting case to revisit.
Sure.
For now, though, we're seeing the effect on Hollywood, or the effect that Hollywood is having on Springfield, and the effect is price gouging, because everybody in town is raising their prices. We see screws now being sold as movie screws for $10. Giant horrible toupees are $1,000 a pound, and Snake has now just changed he's wearing a sandwich board sign that says, "Give me $1 million or I'll bash you."
There you go.
And we are now seeing the Fall Out Boy auditions that are occurring at Springfield Elementary School, which we've talked about it in the past on this podcast, but just real briefly, I do want to point out that the band Fall Out Boy actually got their name from The Simpsons, specifically this episode. And the lore goes, they've told this in interviews a few times, but essentially they were touring as a startup band and they didn't have a name. So they called out to their audience and were asking for suggestions, and somebody screamed out, "Fall Out Boy," and it stuck. And of course, now they've become a pretty huge band at this point. They've been around for quite a while.
And at least the Simpsons are spreading still.
Yeah, Simpsons did it.
Mm-hmm.
We see Bart is just impressing everybody as he's waiting in line and rehearsing his lines for his audition. And on the opposite end of that spectrum, we see Milhouse is being forced against his will to go in front of the director and at least try. His mom's telling him he's going to be great. Now take off those glasses so I can see your beautiful eyes. Milhouse is the
I love Bart's moment
eyes.
where he's like, "Now is the winner of our discontent," and it scares
Oh
Ralph.
no, run!
Oh no, run! And I love Nancy Cartwright's delivery of all the like pauses and like, "Watch out, Radioactive Man." I just absolutely love, like, slightly over the top, but it sells the moment so well.
Yeah, no, she does a great job in this.
Yeah, amazing. Almost as good of a job as Lunch Lady Doris is doing, feeding the lines to each of these kids auditioning. Poor Nelson. Actually, this is a really fun sequence because Nelson gets cut very quickly and the director just yells out "next." And as Nelson passes a mirror, he gives himself a "ha ha," and then realizes how bad that hurts. No wonder nobody came to my birthday party. So fun.
Just glad to see it put a different spin on a joke they've been using a lot. So that's the cleverness of the writing right there.
Yeah, you're always trying to find some way to do the different thing you've done before, but find a new twist on it or something, you know. So imagine how we're doing 23 years later. So we're still out there plugging away.
That's amazing. Yeah, congratulations, by the way, on season 30. We haven't even mentioned that yet, but as we record this, I just watched the new Treehouse of Horror, and it was fantastic.
Oh, great. Thank you. Well, I think we have a lot of great episodes coming up this season, so
looking forward to
hopefully you'll like them all.
Yeah, I love the eating contest with Cthulhu. That was amazing.
That was fun.
Good way to book in that one. I also really appreciate how much you get out of Ralph in just a few short lines in this episode, because he's barely in the episode. We already mentioned he had the run a moment ago, but he also has his own audition where he just asks Lunch Lady Doris, "What's for lunch tomorrow?"
Next.
Chicken necks?
Yeah. Even at that point, 23 years ago, Ralph was still sort of capable of saying, complete sentences. He's gotten a little worse over the years.
He hasn't shoved the finger too far up at this point.
That's right.
And then I love that we get a brief moment of the honesty that we can find from Hollywood, where the moral integrity of the director overcomes the fact that he has found the perfect Fallout Boy. He looks out and he sees it's oh shit, I'm blinking. Martin. Yeah. He looks out and he sees that none other than Martin is passing by, and he has all of the perfect qualities that they're looking for a Fallout Boy, but he didn't fill out any of the paperwork, and that would be unfair to the other children.
That to me is like that's Swartzwelder right there. That attitude of thinking to give the director that. And later on at the end of the show, I'm skipping ahead, but when they return to Hollywood and everyone's there,
that.
like welcoming them back, and how, welcome back to Hollywood from horrible Springfield. It's just, that is the exact Swartzwelder comedy viewpoint right there. It's so perfect.
I love the line, "You can take anything you need from our boutiques while you get back on your feet." Brilliant.
I hope that's how the town is reacting right now after the World Series to their baseball team, because that was a little rough. But I hope the town's doing okay.
I'm a Mets fan, so I can't.
I knew that. I knew that. Can you give the Rangers DeGrom, please? Like, please just give us DeGrom. I'll be your best friend forever.
No, never.
Did somebody win the sports ball?
Yes, Miles. Somebody won the sports ball.
As everyone knows, I only watch real sports like wrestling. I don't like that predetermined bullshit you guys are into. It's a big scam, and you know it. So we finally see Bart's audition, and he comes in with all the gusto that we've already seen him have so far. He gives the lines, "Watch out, Radioactive Man." He does it again, over and over, and it's ever more perfect each time, and the director couldn't be happier. "Congratulations, Bart Simpson. You're our new Fallout Boy." "That's what I'd be saying to you if you weren't an inch too short. Next." Oh, I remember this moment from childhood when I would watch this episode, and just remember, like, probably as a kid, as an adult, my perspective has changed, but as a kid, this might have been the most gut-wrenching moment that The Simpsons ever delivered. I remember just feeling so bad for Bart in that moment, where you can see it on his face. And shout out to the animators on this too, because they did such a good job conveying his emotion along with Nancy, who, I mean, you can just see that split second where his hopes and dreams just get completely demolished. And a perfect time for an act break too, as the screen cuts to black, which is exactly how Bart is feeling in that moment.
Exactly.
And as we come back from the break, you see that Bart is determined, very determined, to grow that extra inch. He's actually tied himself by his arms and his legs to Santa's little helper and Snowball too, and is commanding them to stretch him. He's got to get that inch.
It must have worked slightly too, we'll find out.
Yeah, that's true. As Bart comes racing down the stairs the next morning, you get a moment of hope for him as he measures himself, and you can see that his squiggly lined head is now definitely taller than it was the day before. But as he groans, unfortunately, he only grew half an inch. He's still too short.
Growing half an inch in one day is still pretty good, Bart.
Yeah, that's how fast Grandpa's shrinking.
I'm as tall as I ever was.
Way to use Abe, and just a quick joke on that as he comes walking by and he's barely standing over the height of the table. But Bart's got a plan. He comes out in a very fun look. He's got a pinstripe suit. He's wearing platform shoes. He's done everything he can to make himself grow taller. And I love his line, too, to the director. "I've grown that extra inch you wanted, plus several feet more." And in that moment, the director announces, "We've found our new Fallout Boy." And once again, Bart couldn't be happier. He's right over there, and he points to Milhouse. And then back to back, within a couple of minutes of each other, Bart is crushed twice in a very, very significant manner.
Well, and if Milhouse is there the second day, either he didn't get to audition the first day, or he got a call back. So great job, Milhouse.
Against his wanting to be there, too, which is kind of funny in its own regard. But it gives a nice tension to this episode.
I love the angle they take on this, too, where Bart wants it so bad, but the best friend that doesn't want it gets it, and he has to cope with his own feelings and still help Milhouse out, which he does a terrible job of.
Yeah, absolutely. And anytime we get an appearance from Lionel Hutz, I'm happy. And we get one immediately when Milhouse is announced publicly as the new Fallout Boy. Hutz rushes the front of the line. Milhouse, baby, Lionel Hutz, your new agent, bodyguard, unauthorized biographer, and drug dealer, keeper awayer. Phil Hartman, man, one of the best of all time.
Absolutely.
So we obviously see that the tension of this episode, as Richie was just talking about, is going to come from the fact that you have two best friends, one of which wants this more than anything, one of which doesn't want it at all, but ends up getting it. And so sad for Milhouse, too, and he tries to get support from his parents, but they're already selling out and, like, accepting their roles as, like, childhood starlet parents.
Which their facts about that news must have come in a lot quicker than comic book guys. Or, I mean, the Simpsons.
How fast can you get a jacuzzi suit ordered to Springfield is what I want to know.
I don't know. Especially in the pre-Amazon days.
Right? There was no Prime back then.
Oh.
And also, did the jacuzzi suit take off? Because I feel like if somebody could get that technology right, that would be a thing people would want.
A Snuggie with a jacuzzi inside. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm sure there's no problems with something that surrounds you with water that you have to plug in to heat up. I can't imagine what the issues might be there.
Hey, technically, Simpsons did it.
Bart has a really funny throwaway line, too, about this as he's dejected. He talks about how he just missed out on the greatest opportunity of his entire life. George Burns was right. Show business is a hideous bitch goddess. And again, that's like a second and a half of delivery and just such a funny moment that really just contributes. It's those types of lines that I think you guys do such a good job with and still do such a good job with as you write for The Simpsons, where you just pack so many jokes into such a short amount of time.
Yeah, that's what we spend most of our time just trying to just pack the jokes, going through the script over and over again, add more, get them in there, you know. That's one of the things about this show, too, that I love is that it's a fun story. It's like you said, it's not particularly, super dark or emotional, but it's just fun. And it just has that time for like these little detours that are just pure comedy. Like the bit where Homer is doing that thing where he's like, stretching out and trying to look more relaxed than the
Teamsters.
Yeah, it's great. It's just great. It's great. There's just so much room in the story for all that kind of hilarious stuff.
So when you take a show like F is for Family, is that still something that you find yourself doing with a script, or is it different because of the more narrative nature?
No, it's similar, that everything comes from the story first for F is for Family, trying to find the right emotional arcs for the characters and the right story beats. And then we write it that way first. And then we do a very similar rewrite process on F is for Family as we do on The Simpsons, where we then go through it and just try to, we'd love to just make it as funny as possible while still remaining true to the characters and real. The kind of jokes we do are a little bit different. Like we would never do that kind of joke like, congratulations, you're a Fallout Boy is what I would have said. We won't do that. But we try to find funny moments, throughout the show as much as we can so that it's consistently funny. But while at the same time, staying real and emotionally interesting and real. And then sometimes what we'll do that is like we'll do another pass where we try to just find funny stuff that, like the places where we can be silly like that are sort of like when they're watching TV or things like that. So like for instance, in season 2 there was the episode that I really enjoy where Frank was home because he was out of work. And he was watching TV, and we had that commercial for the old, like the 1970s compilation record albums. Mm-hmm. So that was where, like, we really went to town there with like coming up with funny names for all the bands and songs. That's where we let our kind of inner Simpson writer loose, But for the most part, we're trying to keep it funny, but not make it seem too jokey or too, for lack of a better term, sitcom-y. But,
with The Simpsons, you have a little bit more of that flexible reality, and with F is for Family, you're trying to keep it based in more of an actual reality. For the most part, it seems. I don't know how often, people go exploding at airports, but hey, well, actually, that's now just turned into a joke that I meant to do, phrasing.
Yeah.
Whoopsie. So back to The Simpsons is my usual cop-out when I put my foot in my mouth. So Back to The Simpsons, we see Lisa encouraging Bart to be there for Milhouse as he's going to be going through a lot. He's going to need a true friend, someone to tell him he's great, to rub lotion on him, someone that he can hurl a whiskey bottle at when he's feeling low.
You're right, Lise. I can suck up to him like the religious people suck up to God.
It's funny because it's true. We also see that Homer is taking advantage of this newfound Hollywood money by renting out the Simpsons' home. He's going to be making $50 a day just so they can film some of the scenes in the movie there. Only we immediately see the crew just breaking everything, putting giant holes in the wall just to run a cable, hitting the lights on the ceiling as they come through, just really destroying the home. Definitely doing more than the $50 that he'll be raking in. But as we know, Homer just wants that bar tab at Moe's and doesn't really care about the rest.
I love how he recognizes the director and asks him if he's the one that made the film Unnatural Discretion. And the director's like, oh, yeah, yes, I did. He goes, pew! I never walk out of a movie, but yeesh.
And then immediately the guy's like, why don't you go get something out of our food truck? And we get this great visual where Homer's still standing there, but it's not. It's just the dust that was left on his body because he left so quickly.
I love that joke. That's such a great visual joke.
Yeah.
And then we get one of the more classic lines from this episode, or at least the one that I think probably gets repeated the most often, both in the script and just from fans. And that's with a line coach, a dialogue coach, working with Rainier Wolfcastle, trying to teach him how to say Radioactive Man's signature catchphrase, "Up and atom!
Up and at them!
Up and atom!
Up and at them!
Up and atom!"
Up and at them!
Better.
Harry does such a great job with that character. We love Rainier Wolfcastle, but this is like the Rainier Wolfcastle spectacular episode. So, and Harry Shearer is so great in that character.
Yeah, Harry Shearer. We love some of the. Let me rephrase that. We're really looking forward to some of the moments between Skinner and Chalmers that we have coming up, especially with the Aurora Borealis that'll be happening at the end of this season, according to science.
That's right.
Really cool.
The local phenomenon.
Yes, entirely in this kitchen. I love this little bit, which I'm going to go ahead and label one of our last Merkin moments we have, is David Merkin is still the showrunner at this time, and as we know, he is known to have a darker sense of humor sometimes. And in this case, we see Bart, who is going to try to show some encouragement and support for his friend Milhouse, only to see him get blown up in front of him, where his head, Milhouse's head, actually lands in Bart's arms as Bart screams.
I didn't do it. I wished him well.
Stupid dummy wasn't supposed to explode yet. But it's fine. He sees the real Milhouse sitting in the street getting ready to take a shot, only to discover that he's getting ran over by a street press, or he's getting ran over, basically. But of course, that also turns out to be, in this case, it's the Estonian dwarf who is Milhouse's stunt double.
Yep.
And that's how you do it. You got to protect the talent. So, and it's good to see the Estonian dwarf back in action.
Yeah.
That's right.
Only they didn't use a stunt double for the very real X-ray that they put Milhouse under.
I love that you see his skull when they show the X-ray, and you see his skull underneath it. So.
Yeah, and Milhouse is asking about it too. Like, that's not a real X-ray, right?
And he's laying on a broken bottle.
Use it. Oh, and another just ridiculous gag that makes zero sense, but is absolutely one of my favorite parts of this entire script, is where we see Martin asking some questions of the set designers, because you see they're painting horses to look like cows, because if you want something to look like a cow on film, you have to use horses.
You want something that looks like a horse.
You usually just tape a bunch of cats together.
Right.
You learn so
That's how it's
much.
done. Movie magic.
You learn so much on The Simpsons. We also see this is where that great scene Mike just spoke of a moment ago, where the Teamsters and Homer get into a competition of who can be lazier and more relaxed. It literally just dissolves into four men writhing on the ground, doing their best to stretch and groan in relaxation the most. Really funny stuff.
Yeah, I feel like in this episode that because the movie is the plot, like there isn't necessarily a B plot unless you consider the Milhouse angle to be the B plot after the movie. But like I find as we've been reviewing these, I almost like the episodes more where they just focus on the singular plot and they just have little snippets on the side, like this one and other ones we've seen in this episode already. It's just I guess it's because it's Radioactive Man as well, and the little boy in me is really excited about that angle. But I love the approach in this episode.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I mean, it's great to have a story that doesn't take there's not a whole lot of twists and turns. So there's just room for just hilarious set pieces and funny stuff. So
would you say that's something that's a conscious decision on the writer of each episode's part, or is that something that might be more directed, that they want that type of episode for a flow?
I don't know. I mean, I think this things kind of naturally evolve or develop. We do a lot more kind of B stories now these late seasons, and I'm a fan of if they really work together, that's great. But I also like a good show where it's just one straight like main A story with like little runners off to the side. So I think it depends on the individual story.
Sure.
Yeah.
You could almost consider the town trying to nickel and dime these poor these wholesome Hollywood people, just taking advantage of them. You could almost count that as a B plot, but it's so entwined into the main story, like Richie said, that it does feel like just one 30-minute or 22-minute narrative or whatever it came out to be after credits and commercials.
Right. Yeah.
So we see, though, that this is really starting to take a toll on Milhouse. He really is miserable. He has to get up at 5 a.m. for makeup. He does like the way the blush brings out his cheekbones, but it's not worth it. He said Jiminy Jilliker so many times the words have lost all meaning, and it used to be one of his favorite phrases.
We've got to do the Jiminy Jilliker scene again, Milhouse.
We already did it. It took 7 hours, but we did it. It's done.
Yes, but we've got to do it from different angles. Again and again, and again and again and again.
And they again pointed out on the commentary, and Mike, you might know with your experience as well, that this is actually very accurate to how a lot of Hollywood action sequences actually are created. That they just do these takes. Sometimes a single action shot will just take like a week of shooting with the actor just delivering the same line, trying to match the same energy over and over and over and over again.
I'm sure that's true.
Not all it's hopped up to be, according to other people than myself. I don't know. We didn't talk about a scene earlier where Krusty actually kind of campaigned for himself to be in the movie. He wasn't able to get
the clown.
He wasn't actually able to get that part, but he did land 3 others where he was like the scientist clown, silly sailor, and all of these were based off of his headshots.
Right. Well, that's like a real inside Hollywood thing, like that picture he has. Because most actors in the old days, I don't know if they do it anymore, would have like their main headshot, which would just be a picture of themselves. And they have what was called a composite, which would be like that thing, 4 different shots with them in like various, like one was always like holding a phone, or one would be like with a tennis racket, and one would be like kind of glasses like pushed down over the nose like a nerd. It would just be a way to show your versatility. But I don't see too many of those anymore. But that was a kind of a well-known kind of thing back in those days.
I love how whenever Krusty is like, I'll give you my best, or they'll all be great, and then when the guy leaves the room, he's like, I'm not so sure about that silly sailor. Which I think that Radioactive Man must have been borrowing some recycled sets from the movie Waterworld, because
yeah.
We see Aquaworld is where Radioactive Man and Fallout Boy are encountering Silly Sailor.
Jiminy Jillikers.
Now there's no need for profanity, Fallout Boy. So all of this is going really well, actually, even though the directors are aware that the town is nickeling and diming them with all these silly taxes, which Mayor Quimby at one point just shows up and has an extra, like, $1,000 tax for whatever reason it is.
He brought Wiggum as backup, too.
Oh, yeah. his muscle.
Yeah.
But even with that, everything is going super well, and it's all led up to their biggest and their most expensive scene in the movie. They only get one shot, so they have to get it right. Fallout Boy is going to untie Radioactive Man, who is tied to a pillar where a vat of acid is going to be spilled.
Sulfuric acid.
And they are going to be using real acid, so I want to see goggles, people.
Real acid?
Oh, God.
There's so much to love about all of this. Like, why would you use real acid would be a great question. Or if you are going to use real acid, why would you have so many people on standby? Like Krusty, who is more concerned about getting coffee than anything else, we're going to come to find out. Of course, they didn't even bother to check one very important aspect before they did dump that vat of acid, and that is the fact that while Fallout Boy was the big hero of the scene, Fallout Boy wasn't on set. Milhouse actually ran away, fleeing away from the movie set, just completely fed up with the whole Hollywood experience. And poor Rainier Wolfcastle is just left on his own, with the goggles, to be fair. Unfortunately, he finds out the goggles, they do nothing.
My eyes. Why didn't they have the Estonian dwarf on standby to jump in there?
Right? That would have been good for a stunt double moment.
Yeah.
Matt Groening does point out on the commentary that the goggles do nothing is one of his favorite lines of all time in The Simpsons.
Oh, it's great. It's great.
It really is. It's a good one. And what a hellish way to leave us for the act break, to come to the end of Act 2. We come back for Act 3, and Milhouse is missing. Rainier Wolfcastle has been left pantless and presumably dead, hanging from the side of a trailer. That's a dark sequence, too, where his body gets slammed in and his feet just dangle as his pants disintegrate.
Well, that's why they have the feet dangling, to show that he's still alive at the moment.
I thought they stopped at the very end before it went. I don't know. Maybe.
He was tired. The goggles,
Fair.
they do nothing.
That's true. Nothing for his feet, especially.
Yeah.
But when we come back for our third act, we see that the entire town of Springfield is looking high and low and everywhere they can, trying to hunt down Fallout Boy, as they've got to finish the movie. I mean, they've got to get this together.
Well, don't you worry, Miles, because the editors come up with a great plan. With modern editing techniques, they can actually use existing footage to complete the film without Milhouse.
We get this great sequence where we see very rough, sloppy, like level 1 of this podcast level of bad editing sequences where Milhouse will be like sitting on a couch delivering a line in the middle of an action sequence where they're fighting aliens.
Yes.
I love the editor, too, at the end is so proud. It's like, seamless, huh?
You're fired.
And with good cause. But it's cool. Wiggum is on the case. He is going to use every last bit of resources that the Springfield Police Department has. In this case, he's gulling out the hounds. He's got the dogs, and they never
Release
fail.
the hounds. But will they just find Milhouse, or will they find him and kill him?
Well, they'll find him, and they'll
Excuse me, you didn't answer me. You just trailed off.
Yeah, I did just kind of trail off there, didn't I? Again, there's so much. This is such a great episode because there's so much happening for the plot of the Radioactive Man movie, but we still get so many of these great interactions, and we get a really wide range of seeing how all these characters interact with this Hollywood set. It's wonderful. I love it.
I like how you even have a character, a one-shot character like the director, where this is the only episode you'll ever see him in. But as Mike brought up earlier, he has those little lines like he does where he doesn't give Martin a chance at the part, where they even find funny bits for the characters you'll never see again. So it's not just some boring person that's on screen at different points in the episode, but they actually like flesh them out very quickly and give them little funny moments.
Well, and there's so many, like you said, they flesh that character out, and then they also give so many cameos, I guess, to all of the like town regulars. Like we're gonna see Otto here in a minute in a great sequence as Bart is hunting down his best friend, trying to be there for him, and looking where only he knows to find him, which apparently is an old spirograph factory, by the way.
I love that.
And he knows the guy too. He's like, "Hey, Dr. S, have you seen Millhouse?"
Yeah.
No.
Spirograph was the biggest thing when it came out when I was a kid. I was like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing.
I had a spirograph when I was a kid, and I loved that thing.
Yeah.
And Susie Dieter actually points out on the commentary that he's got all the wall art, and the animators even did a really good job of matching the correct colors, because that was like the right color choices. It was like that kind of not right pink and the not quite neon green. Really funny stuff. But yeah, just how friendly they are too. I love Bart and this Mr. or Dr. S person seem to have at least some sort of relationship.
Well, he's on the right path with the direct correlation between the decline of Spirograph and the rise of gang activity.
It's true.
Think about it.
I will.
No, you won't. Finally, Bart has only one last place to look. He must be in the treehouse, but when Bart climbs up the ladder, he checks the first corner, and then the second corner, the third corner, the fourth corner, the fifth corner, and finally finds Millhouse in the sixth corner of this usually square treehouse. I love the flexible physics that the Simpsons world provides.
Great.
Marge knows all about it, as we found out a few weeks ago. But yeah, this is one of the earliest bits from The Simpsons that I remembered as a child, and I always love going to school talking about this episode because of Up and Adam and because of the many corners of the treehouse. But that's where you always felt like you were smarter than all the other kids, being like, "Did you notice there's more than 4?" Which everybody always noticed that.
Oh, I'm average. But Bart tries to convince his friends that he's got important things to do and that, fulfilling this role is really going to help. Which Millhouse is like, no, curing heart disease and wiping out world hunger would be helpful. I love Bart's speech here.
Yeah, it's great.
But Millhouse, they haven't cured anything. Heart disease and world hunger are still rampant. Those do-gooders are all a bunch of pitiful losers. Every last one of them. Want results? You have to go to the Schwarzeneggers, the Stallones, and to a lesser extent, the Van Dams.
Oh, so much shade thrown in all of that. That's so great.
Van Damme's doing commercials now for Tostitos or whatever he's been doing, but I see him all the time on my PlayStation.
Yeah, he's all right.
I actually really enjoyed the show he did, or at least the first episode or two, and then it kind of dropped off, to be honest. But he did a show where he played himself on, I want to say it was on Amazon Prime, maybe. Wow, really wish I had the name of this show. Might be called Van Damme for all I know. But it's fun. It's one of his most recent projects, and he plays a kind of alternate version of himself if he actually was a government agent, but also an actor. It's really weird.
I always enjoyed the movie JCVD where he played himself in the mid 2000s, where he's at a bank getting money and the bank gets robbed and the robbers recognize him and he plays in his mind how people expect him to do it, where he's kicking their butts and everything, but it's just an image in his mind, and then he comes back to where he's actually trying to talk him down. And it was just one of those, it was a really good movie. I very much enjoyed it, where he was trying to be serious but also making fun of his own persona in a way.
It's always nice when people can at least appreciate and poke fun at themselves, because if you look at all the Van Damme movies, they are pretty ridiculous. And
Street Fighter!
Oh my god, I love Street Fighter.
I'm a big fan of Time Cop, especially when he jumps up and splits like that.
Yeah. That splits thing is legit. He did that bit where he did that between the semi-trucks a few years back, too. That's insane. Yeah. But we get a little bit more help from an action hero, or at least a man who comes down to the treehouse from a helicopter circling above. It's none other than Mickey Rooney there to save the day.
Yes.
He tells Milhouse that the studio has sent him to talk to him because as a former child star himself, he was the #1 box office draw from 1939 to 1940, after all.
Wow, spanning 2 decades.
That's brilliant. But yeah, Mickey Rooney comes in and he's trying to tell Milhouse that it's not a hollow thing. In fact, the only thing hollow about show business is the music industry.
And they tapped the treehouse phone.
Yeah, that's true. That's how they found him, is they tapped into their 2 cups on a string. But yeah, all of this is so wonderful. Mickey Rooney is actually recording this, and it's actually Nancy Cartwright actually has spoken about this experience in one of her books, where she says that he chose to record as a group. It was all 3 of them with is it
Pamela?
Milhouse? Thank you. Yes,
Pamela Hayden.
Yes, it was Mickey Rooney, Pamela Hayden, and Nancy Cartwright all recording these lines together, and they just talked about how great his energy was and how much fun he was having doing these parts, and just, the willingness he was to take this very goofy read that he was given and deliver it with such heart and such sincerity that it just made it that much funnier.
Yeah, no, he was great. I met him around this time, like I was working on another show, but he did a guest shot on this other show I did, and he was very up for telling all these stories about Hollywood, and I'm a big fan of the movie It's a Mad, 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 Mad World that he's in. That's my favorite movie probably of all time. And when
you have the Simpsons parody of that too.
That's exactly right. When I told him that, he got very upset. He's like, "Yeah, that could have been a great movie, but he used the F word. They fucked that up."
Oh no!
I was like, "What?" So then it took a while to get it out of him because they kept stopping the tape, and he explained that in his mind, if you know in that movie, like all these people are out trying to get this money that's buried, under these palm trees, and it was $300,000, which in 1963 was a lot of money, but he thought it was too small an amount of money. He kept trying to tell Stanley Kramer, who directed the movie, it should be $1 million. But no, they wouldn't listen to me, and that's why the movie was all messed up. So, and then a few years back, I guess it's probably like 4 or 5 years ago now, I wrote an episode of the show that Seth MacFarlane guest starred on. That was, I can't remember the name of it right now. I'm so sorry, but it was about Marge sort of having like an internet flirtation with a guy that Seth MacFarlane played. And we went over to record Seth MacFarlane at his studios where he makes all his shows, Family Guy and everything. And for whatever reason, Mickey Rooney happened to be there that day, just like coming by because he wanted to meet Seth MacFarlane or something like that. So he wasn't even involved he wasn't even doing a part. He just wanted to meet him or whatever. So he was there. This is like about a year or so before he died. And he was still Mickey Rooney. He was still telling his stories and everything. So it was great.
That's amazing to get to meet him. I mean, he did pass away in 2014. Of course, it's sad, but his career spanned 9 decades, which is kind of just crazy to even think about. He was still he worked since the 1930s. So yeah, that was
right.
a long time.
His career spanned 9 decades and 11 marriages. I think he was at the time he was always famous for having tons of marriages.
Good for him.
Yeah.
I like the fact that they all recorded together though in the studio, because I thought that rarely happens in an animation standpoint when you're recording the audio, but that's really cool that they actually all 3 recorded together.
Yeah, I think sometimes when we have like a special guest like that, we'll try to get the actors who were doing the scene with them to come in and read with them. So it's always fun to do that.
I feel like that's easier to get a better energy amongst the actors that way. I mean, it would just make sense to be able to actually react to each other.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, even Mickey Rooney himself cannot convince Milhouse to return to the film. So for another brief moment, it looks like Bart is going to land the role after all, because Mickey Rooney points out that they have another Fallout Boy right here, and he actually has his arm around Bart. Only we dissolve back to the set where we see Rooney himself delivering the lines, Jiminy Jillikers!
Jiminy Jillikers, Jiminy Jillikers, Jiminy Jillikers.
And at this point, they discover that they're going to have to shut down production because they only have $1,000 left anyway.
There's a $1,000 leaving town tax.
And Mickey Rooney delivers a wonderful speech here at the end of the episode. He basically talks down to the town of Springfield, saying, "I hope you're all satisfied. You bankrupted a bunch of naive movie folks from Hollywood where values are different. They weren't thinking about the money. They just wanted to tell a story about a radioactive man, and you slick small towners took them for all they're worth."
Can we give them some of the money back?
No. And then Mickey Rooney gets such a great send-off of this episode, too, because a pilot of his helicopter yells out, "Mr. Rooney, we've got a disenchanted little girl in a Jell-O pudding commercial."
I could play that.
Again, it's so great that he's willing to poke fun at himself and just have these silly little adventures where he apparently is there to save child actors or replace them, whichever is easiest. We get our Simpsons reset where Bart and Milhouse have essentially, well, actually, we think we get our Simpsons reset where we see Bart and Milhouse back in school. But when Bart talks to his friend about how it must be kind of boring coming back to school, we see it's actually the Estonian dwarf.
Quiet. Maybe I can get to my citizenship.
And then we get the wonderful ending where the wonderful Hollywood folks are back in their hometown where everyone's nice to each other and they don't just take advantage of one another and they treat each other right. And the camera pans away from the Hollywood and Vine street corner and the song Lean On Me plays as we roll into our credits and come to the end of Radioactive Man. What a ride.
What a magical place on Earth.
Mike, was there anything else that you wanted to talk about or mention from this episode of The Simpsons?
Oh no, I think we covered it all. It's just so fun to see it again. You know, after I hadn't watched it in many years, and it was just so great to see, and just so many funny jokes, and like I said, Swartzwelder is a national treasure. So it was just a great time.
Oh yeah, it's a wonderful episode. Great choice for one to come back and spend some time with us on, which we greatly appreciate. I want to talk a little bit more about F is for Family before we go, but real quick on this episode, Rich, was there anything from that book of yours or yourself that you wanted to mention?
Yep, we mentioned it all. The nerds, the comic books, and all the names shouted out. So good job, Miles. Covered everything in the book today. I'm proud of you, son.
Thanks, brother. Well, Mike, again, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. We have so much fun talking to you about The Simpsons, and it's so fun to hear some stories from the behind the scenes of F is for Family, which of course has been available now since November 30th, the last 2 days. You can watch it in its entirety as we speak. Anything else you want to share with the F is for Family fans out there? Any last teasers or any last bits of information you want to put out there before we end here today?
No, I don't want to give away too much, but just, go on there, watch it now.
That's right. Watch it immediately.
Then
rewatch it.
Then watch it again and again. Just put your, hit your Netflix for auto watch, if there's such a thing.
I think, make sure you have it so it just goes to the next one. I hate when it gets judgy, though, and it's like, are you sure you want to watch the next episode? And
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, I'm sure.
I gotta get up off the couch and walk across the room to hit play again.
No, I do not want to go outside. Thank you very much. But yeah. Also, hey, I know Mike's very active on Twitter. He's at Mike Price in LA, and I believe he also might have a little something to do with the FIFF. Is that right? FF. You do your own plug.
I do. Yeah, it's our writers account. It's called FIFF Netflix or F is for Family Writers. I'm mostly me. But you'll see a lot of behind the scenes pictures there, and we put up pictures of, like, we had a party the other night. We had our our rap party the other night at a bowling alley. So there's some pictures up there and all kinds of good stuff.
That's super cool. Yeah, it's really fun to see all the fan art, too. If you're an artist of any sort, tweet Mike in the F is for Family Writers Room there, and he will give you a retweet, put you on blast, and I know he interacts with a lot of the fans, and I think that's really cool. It's really fun to see that, and for us to get to interact with you as well. Richie and I feel the same way. We love to talk about The Simpsons and F is for Family. Richie is at theWiz_kid23. I'm at MrMostDaysOff, and you can follow our podcast at Best Darn Diddly. You can find that anywhere online at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY. Richie and I are going to be back and be joined by another great guest. It's the streak. The streak continues, I should say, as Dr. Andrew Briseno is going to be joining us next week for the episode Home Sweet Home Dumb Diddly Doodly, which is a mouthful to say, but a great, great episode. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through The Simpsons, the Golden Age, and beyond. We cannot wait to be back with you again next week.
Well, we'll be 1/24th the size and 3/8 the fun.
And until next time, be cromulent to each other.
I'm Jay.
I'm Bob.
And I'm Corey.
We are the Cretins Guild.
We're a trio of man-children whose friendship predates the Lion King, Green Day's Dookie, the N64, and the Chunnel.
We have backgrounds working in television, video games, radio broadcasting, creative writing, and pizza delivery. That's a large cheese, right?
On our podcast, Nerd or Not, you'll hear us talk about board games, TV, movies, comics, collectibles, video games, wrestling, theme parks. We even did a segment on pizza.
So check and listen to us on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. And check out our socials on Twitter and Instagram under Cretins Guild.
Welcome to the Guild.